So let me then move to the last but definitely not least presentation of today, going the distance, the benefits and challenges of engaging volunteers and community initiatives in prison sports program. This presentation focuses on the involvement of volunteers in prison sports, and we have heard how important it is to involve volunteers just now from Gabriela, but also from the Catalonians. If you really develop very large programs, you can't do that just with prison staff. In this presentation, they will introduce 3 case studies and in which different volunteering frameworks were developed. And let me introduce the 2 speakers, Rita Laurenko. Rita holds a degree in criminology and a master's in human potential management. And at Proxima in Portugal, she manages and supervises criminal justice sector projects and programs. And her co-presenter, Rhiannon Williams. Rhiannon works for the Bremen Ministry of Justice and Constitution in Germany. And she is the coordinator of the Erasmus Plus project, fallpris.eu, that deals with the qualification and volunteering management in prisons. So the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. That was a great introduction. And thanks to all of you who are sitting, listening to all this. If this really were a sporting event, then this would be the marathon of all events. So well done, everyone, for sitting and listening to all these amazing presentations for all this time. Thanks to you, Kirsten, to Anton, and to Europris for the platform, for sharing these huge range of really inspiring and interesting projects. I mean, really, without this kind of sharing platform, we would be hard pushed to learn lessons from each other. And I'm sure that everybody's taken something away from today that they will use and take forward. But right now, Rita and I are going to take what I would call a step back slightly and look instead at so we have a huge range of sporting projects which we know use volunteers and external partners, and they involve a lot of people who come in from the outside the prison walls. And as Gabriela said, they also have a huge impact on activating the community and also how the media sees offenders and ex-offenders. So why are they not delivered more? Well, Volpres is part of the answer to this question, and we would like to spend a few minutes with you presenting our project on training coordinators or managers in prisons or in volunteering organizations who train volunteers themselves, for those volunteers to go into prison. And this is what we will be working on as an Erasmus Plus project for the next 3 years. I'm going to hand over to Rita to begin.
Thank you, Rhiannon. So I will start by sharing a short video. This was only an energizer activity.
It's to wake everybody up.
Yes. So I will now share my screen. So we will start by giving an overview of the concept of volunteering and the concept of volunteering in the criminal justice system. Then Rhiannon will briefly present the Volpris project and the benefits and challenges of engaging volunteers and community organizations in prison sport programs. And then, of course, we will share with you the promising practices that were mentioned already. So for us, and as a starting point, we volunteering can be defined as any activity in which time is given freely. So we can only say that it is a volunteer action if it is performed through free will, it is continuous over time and cannot be paid. It's work that it's not paid. It normally involves service to people, and it's usually carried out through organizations and agencies. So when we fit all these items, we can say we are under a volunteering action. As you already know, volunteering in a criminal justice context can play different roles and can happen in different contexts. So it can take place in prisons, but also in probation and NGOs. And what we want to share with you is that we have a lot of diversity when we talk about volunteering in the criminal justice system, and we also have different target groups. So we can work with prisoners, but also with ex-offenders, with their families, prisoners' children, and victims of crime. So volunteering in the prison context, we can all agree that it brings different benefits, not only for the prisoners, but also for their families, for the society as a whole. But the fact is that this is an area that where research is still very scarce. So it's different to find information or data that can help us to justify the benefits of volunteering in the criminal justice system in the prison context. And that's why we decided to run Erasmus Plus project that it's called Volpris. And we'll now give the floor to my colleague Rhiannon that will present Volpris in detail.
Thanks, Rita. Right, first of all, again, a slight backtrack. This doesn't come out of the blue, the idea to train the people who coordinate volunteering in prison. It's based, as you can see along the bottom of the slide, these are the partners that are involved in this project, but it's based on a whole series of projects that we've been involved in for the last 8 years, beginning perhaps with the Jive project, which I see there's no more British people left on the panelists, perhaps there are some in the audience, which was coordinated by Clinks, which is a membership organization which represents non-profits working in the criminal justice sector. So this was the start of a snowball effect, if you like, and the Volpris idea to develop a training program is a direct result of one of their recommendations. So we aim to provide a free resource to people to help them improve recruitment and training and support of volunteers who work in prison in any capacity, as you've just seen, and to give European partnerships or international partnerships like this, a platform like this one, to share what they've been doing, how it's worked, how it's been evaluated, how they've implemented the same or similar type of activities in a different regime or with a different target group, or just to share the resources that are being currently being developed in the field of volunteering in prison. So we are in the middle of anybody who's implementing a project in this period of the pandemic will know that timelines have become slightly fluid, but we have already implemented a survey of prison staff who are supporting volunteers within their justice systems, which Rita will go on to talk more in depth about in a minute. From that, we pull out the pertinent points and create a volunteering profile, volunteering coordinator profile, and develop the main pillars of the training course, which we will go on to produce in as a last part of the project. But in the meantime, and running as a thread all the way through, we are in the background developing standards, minimum requirements for what a volunteering program should have in our prisons. And as I said, giving people who, like you, who are developing or thinking of developing volunteering projects involving volunteers, the opportunity to learn from each other and to share our knowledge. Go.
So as Rhiannon was saying, we already finished this first output of the project, and what we did is we tried to map the prison's needs, perception, and practices related to volunteering in the prison context. So we managed, just to give an overview, we only applied this research in the country partners of the project. So the data that we are going to share is only related to these country partners, and even through it's not, it only gives an insight on the needs and perceptions of this prison. So our main questions applying this questionnaire was to understand what is the value of prison volunteering for prison staff, so how they perceive volunteering in their prison, what kind of volunteering activities they have in their prisons, and how these activities are being implemented. So we also wanted to understand if they have a screening process for assessing the prisoners' needs, and if they align the volunteering programs according to the prisoners' needs, and how they recruit and select the volunteering activities to run in their prisons, and how do prisons engage and manage the voluntary sector organizations. Last but not the least, we also wanted to understand if these organizations that organize volunteering programs in the prisons, if they receive any training, or if the volunteers receive any training, and how this training is conducted. So we managed to collect data from 79 different prisons. Only, as I mentioned, only in the partner countries of the project. And also we will not share with you the results of this survey, but if you want to know more, it is available on the project website. But just to share with you that at least 33 prisons reported that they have volunteering programs that are connected with well-being, which means sports, activities, arts, meditation, yoga. So we think it's a very interesting number, and we wanted to share this with you. Also, we managed to, based on all the information that we collect, we managed to draft some recommendations for to value and to promote volunteering programs in the prison context. So we have 12 different recommendations. We think that it's important to promote more research to highlight the diversity of volunteering activities in the prison context. As we already mentioned, there are different type of areas, different type of activities, and there's lack of research in this field. So we reinforce that we need more research. It's important, and we reinforce to keep the prison voluntary sector on the European agenda. And we already discussed about the benefits of volunteering. So this is quite just to reinforce and set up European recommendations related to volunteering practices in prisons, but also in probation services. To have more awareness campaigns for what prison volunteering achieves and the added value of volunteering in prisons, Also, more training available for volunteers and for the organizations that offer volunteering programs. We wanted to reinforce that relationships matter for the reintegration process, to promote more quality in prison volunteering activities, to improve conditions for volunteering activities, more cross-border mobility between prison volunteering coordinators, prison volunteers, prison staff that are connected with this type of activities, and more and more recognition of the prison volunteers' role in the reintegration process, and of course ensure that citizens get access to opportunities for volunteering in the prison settings.
So this is the background of the Volpris research that's taken place so far, but what we had also had a look at, a deeper look at why, if there are benefits to be had from introducing projects like the sporting projects that we've had in prison, that we can show that it brings the prison together, that it supports the inmates. Why are we not implementing more? So on the left-hand side are some responses from our participants who told us that it can, and it has, and it does, broadens and diversifies the opportunities that they can bring to their prisons. Bringing more volunteers and more community members in allows them to cater for a prison population which is now more dynamic. That the team spirit, like in Gabriella's run, it can really bring down the walls of the prison. It can help inmates and staff alike to find a common ground, and specifically, as we've heard all along with the different presentations, that can be attractive for particular individuals who might not have fitted into other projects and programs that were on offer to them. And it's an integrated, it can be used as an integrated approach to support general well-being and mental health, like in Gerko's presentation. It's can be sport as a part of a strategic approach to a holistic method. It is often used as an incentive for good or better behavior, as in it's not possible to keep going to your volunteering coordinator activities if you're not adhering to the rules of the game. And we have quite a lot of evidence to show that it's allowed wider partnerships to continue outside of the prison gates, so that these have become then official probation activities under license, and something that has allowed people to be more to be better reinserted into their communities. The challenges are replete and were repeated throughout by almost everybody that we asked. It's very difficult to find volunteers from the community or from community organizations, and then you have to have somebody who's able to train them in coming into a prison, communicating with prisoners, what to tell prisoners, what not, all the different rules. And as soon as you started to explain them, you'll realize how many there are, and how many the prison staff perhaps accept on a day-to-day basis that somebody coming into prison won't know, and might find quite challenging. For this to happen, it's helpful to have a dedicated staff member, but as we all know, resources in prison are scarce, and having a dedicated staff member for volunteers is problematic. Then training them on top of that was a cost too much to bear for some regimes. The equipment costs of community activities was sometimes too high, or it wasn't possible, like in Gabriella's example, to find external funders who were able to come in and support those costs because of various reasons. it was very difficult, if we saw, to evaluate the impact when you did manage to get a project going, so that you couldn't show, although anecdotally you could say there are changes in people's behavior and things like this. This evaluation of impact is expensive, hard to implement, and something that requires expert help. Space and timetabling in prison life is a nightmare anyway, and trying to add more activities on top of it was another challenge. I'm beginning to sound very negative, but we're coming to the more positive points. And for other NGOs who are implementing particularly physical activities with volunteers inside and outside or through the gate, the license requirements were very difficult to understand, and actually stopped voluntary service organizations from being involved in probation delivery, because it's just too complex, too complicated, and issues like data sharing couldn't be solved without a huge input of resources. Go. So I won't read all these out, but these are some of the quotes from the that you can look at LA State if you're interested, either in the reports that Rita's going to send a link to, or on this slide that will be available from the Europe's website. These are the 4 key areas where volunteering activities bring value in the eyes of the people who responded. We would need specific and adequate training is the top priority. That's where it would be seen as an absolute. Without this, our volunteering activity will not be successful without training. Then the recognition of what volunteers bring into a prison and what volunteering activities can deliver, and that is linked, as I said, to the evaluation and how you show that recognition and value. And thirdly, the relationship between the prison staff and the volunteers or the volunteering organizations, facilitated, of course, by good communication, by partnership agreements, by all the things that stand behind relationship building. And finally, fourth, the volunteer profile. Who were the volunteers coming forward? How were they recruited? And what were the characteristics of volunteers which were the most beneficial? Next. I'm going through very quickly because I'm very aware that I'm running over time. I'm sorry about that. Rita, this is yours.
Yeah, I will. This is a picture from one of the sport volunteering programs that we have in Portugal, and that I will present now. So the name of this program is Rugby Compartilha. It means with sharing. So this very interesting volunteering program that is the same that I shared the video before. Their mission is to contribute to education and social reintegration of the prisoners and also ex-prisoners by promoting the practice of rugby in prisons. So they work with both male and female prisoners, and they have a partnership with the Portuguese Rugby Federation and the Portuguese Prison and Probation Services to deliver this volunteering program. You also have here their Facebook page if you want to know more about this program. And just to share, before the pandemic situation in 2019, they managed to target 95 prisoners in their weekly activities, and they are present in 4 different prisons in Portugal, of course.
Wonderful. So we mentioned before that the examples that were given to us as part of the Volpris research were covering a really dynamic range of target groups, and this, as we know, is one of them. The sporting and general activities for women in prison reflect the sort of gender barriers which exist on the outside. So it might not be that you immediately are successful in establishing a female football team, but you could perhaps find a way into physical exercise for for women's health in a different way. And this is just one example of something that's been taking place in Bremen prison, supported by a local non-profit organization and Bremen University. And it offers wellness and activity as a really popular part of a rolling program of wider reintegration activities, such as sex education, nutritional lessons, and so on, and creative activities. Rita, next. Steps. Okay, so here in the audience is Peter Dorman, the coordinator of this project, and Mr. Hefs, I hope I've said that right, from Heinsberg Prison. Maybe you want to say hi in the chat, you two. And this is their project, another approach to a different target group, this time younger, and also run as a separate and really well received Erasmus Plus project, in which Heinsberg Prison worked with volunteer coaches from Wassenberg Squirrels, the baseball club, and they came in to the prison and trained over a long period of time, prisoners and former prisoners, and gave them a chance then to connect with the baseball club after their imprisonment, and to follow the thread of sport as their way out of the prison and way out of crime. Wonderful. We've come to the end. So before we stop, we just want to mention that we are also a network. You'll be very welcome to join us at our regular meetings. The next one is, the link to the next one is here. It's on the use of voice in prison, but we do a different thematic part of volunteering every single webinar. It's every 2 months, in order not only to bring extra dimension to the training that we're developing, but also to network people like you. Perhaps you're only working on health projects in prison, perhaps you're only working on sport projects in prison, but any project that is involving volunteers, it's really wonderful to have the opportunity to connect with people who are doing the same thing, see what you can learn from each other. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rhiannon and Rita. Very, very interesting project. And yeah, as I said before, we have seen throughout this morning that volunteers are essential actually for making things happen, for making these possibility to organize the big runs, the football matches. It's important to have this group involved. And yeah, I can imagine, as you mentioned, the challenges to actually find sufficient numbers of volunteers can be sometimes very big. And although they are very much needed, but I think it will be very interesting to follow your project, and it's great if you could share the outcomes, at least with Europress throughout the project, so we can also publish them in our media, and they become available for everyone who is interested. I think the reduction in the number of questions might have to do with us being close or over lunchtime and people are getting hungry. So let me just thank both of you again for your presentations, and good luck with the further implementation of the